Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Before I start, let me introduce the four of us in the meeting. I'm Lisa, and I'll give the main overview. With me are Fiona, Callum, and Aisha. We'll each bring a slightly different perspective. Today's topic is Scotland's energy sector, and I'll keep it simple and practical rather than too technical. Just for a sense of scale, Scotland has a population of 5.5 million people, so it's not a huge country, but its energy story is bigger than many people expect. A useful way to understand Scotland's energy is to think about geography. Scotland's land area is about 78,000 square kilometers, and it has a coastline that stretches to around 11,800 kilometers. That combination, space, coast, and weather, shapes what Scotland can do well. You've got remote areas, islands, big open landscapes, and a lot of sea. So energy here isn't just an industry, it's tied to place. Decisions about energy often come with local questions like, what happens near the coast, what happens in rural areas, and how do people benefit if big projects are happening nearby? Now I'll touch briefly on oil and gas because it's still part of the picture even as things change. Across the UK continental shelf, oil and gas production in 2024 was 62.9 million tonnes of oil equivalent, and that's described as the lowest level since the 1970s, which tells you the basin is mature and declining. At the same time, there is still a lot of remaining resource. The UK's regulator estimated proven and probable reserves at 2.9 billion barrels of oil equivalent at the end of 2024. So the sector is smaller than it once was, but it hasn't vanished and it still matters to people and places. Where this becomes real for Scotland is the workforce and local economies. Energy isn't just where power comes from, it's jobs, training, and supply chains. In 2024, the UK's energy industries employed about 158,400 people, and oil and gas extraction accounted for 16% of that energy employment. Those aren't Scotland-only figures, but they help explain why conversations here can be sensitive. When people talk about energy change, they're often thinking about livelihoods and communities, not just emissions. The big challenge is how to shift the economy without leaving people behind or making the change feel abrupt and unfair. On the renewables side, Scotland's story is much more upbeat and it's been building momentum for years. By the end of December 2024, Scotland's renewable electricity capacity was 17.4 gigawatts. And within that, wind is the main character. Onshore wind is described as the biggest single technology, making up about 62% of installed renewable capacity. In normal terms, wind power isn't something Scotland is trying out. It's already a big part of the system. And because it's so visible, especially onshore, people tend to have strong opinions about where projects go and whether local areas feel the benefits. Offshore wind deserves its own moment because it's become one of the clearest growth areas. As of April 2024, Scotland had 2,973 megawatts of offshore wind installed across fully operational projects, with 379 turbines operating. That's a big statement. Hundreds of huge machines out at sea producing power at scale. Offshore wind is also easier to live with for some people compared to onshore, because it's not right next to towns and villages. But it still brings questions about ports, local jobs, and how much of the work happens in Scotland versus elsewhere. Another way to make offshore wind feel concrete is to talk about output and what's coming next. In 2023, Scotland's offshore wind fleet generated over 6,200 GWh of electricity. And it's not standing still. The same sector profile notes 1,332 megawatts of offshore wind capacity was under construction at that point. In plain language, the direction of travel is clear: more projects, more power, more activity around the coast. The important bit from a Scotland perspective is making sure that growth translates into steady work, operations, maintenance, training, and long-term roles, not just a short burst of construction. It also helps to appreciate how quickly the kit has grown. Modern offshore turbines are genuinely enormous. For example, one of the best-known current models is rated at 15 megawatts, and it has a rotor diameter of 236 meters, so one turbine can be like a small landmark. People sometimes hear wind farm and imagine something modest. The reality is industrial-scale engineering. And that matters for Scotland because big machines mean specialized vessels, skilled technicians, and ongoing servicing, exactly the kind of practical work that can support long-term employment if the supply chain is set up well. Looking forward, Scotland has a large pipeline of offshore wind on the books, and that's where expectations and pressure really build. One official snapshot says 20 projects with a combined intended installed capacity of 28.6 gigawatts held option agreements through the ScotWind leasing process. That's big ambition territory. But the public will judge it in very everyday ways. Do local ports get upgraded? Do local businesses win contracts? Are there apprenticeships? And do communities see real benefits rather than just headlines? If those practical pieces don't land, support can soften quickly, even among people who like the idea of clean energy. Finally, it's worth ending on the consumer side because that's where energy becomes personal. In Scotland, there were around 2.4 million private cars at the end of March 2024, but only around 34,000 were fully electric at that point. So the direction is changing, but it's not a total transformation overnight. This links back to the wider energy sector. As more people switch to electric cars and as homes change how they heat and use power, people care about convenience and cost, not theory. In short, Scotland's energy future is being built at sea and on land, but it will be judged in kitchens, commutes, and monthly bills.